Welcome to Winners, Wallets, and Worldviews podcast. I'm your host, AJ Armstrong. You can find more out about me at aaronjarmstrong.com, or you can always go to my Instagram account, aaronarmstrong33, featuring winners, people crushing it in life, wallets, talking about personal finance, investing strategies, entrepreneurship, and real estate. Worldviews, talking about what is it that drives people at the root, what's their religion look like, what's their backgrounds and ethics look like, and I also talk about my faith as a Christian man. Today's guest was a very interesting discussion. His name is Todd Lamb. Todd is an investor, the co-founder of Pure Life Organics, Pure Life Media. He is also a former veteran and a former SWAT team member in Canada. So we broke apart a lot of the different things that contributed towards his success story. And what we found was a lot to do with the art of self-reliance and the way he looks at the world and the way he figures it out. Awesome discussion. And I really think you all will enjoy today's episode with none other than Todd Lamb. So without any further ado, folks, welcome to the show. Welcome to Winners, Wallets, and Worldviews, the only show that's going to teach you how to be somebody.
Where in your life did you learn that you're not good enough?
Take what you're most passionate about and what you're most fearful of, and what is the plan to overcome that fear, and what is the plan to enact that passion.
Welcome to Winners, Wallets, and Worldviews. I am your host, AJ Armstrong. You can follow me on Instagram at aaronarmstrong33, or you can go to my website, aaronjarmstrong.com. Joining me from the West Coast of Canada, we have Todd Lamb over here, and we're going to talk about Todd's story. We're going to talk about, the fitness journey, and we're also going to talk about that kind of holistic environmental perspective on how he approaches entrepreneurship in life. Todd, welcome to the show, brother.
Yeah, thank you so much, AJ. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I wanted to start off by you just kind of telling your story. Where did it start for you, and what kind of led you into this pure life world that you're kind of in today?
Yeah, it was, I've been on a few shows here and there, and super unconventional. Most people, aren't making the leap out of running a SWAT team full time into a holistic, purpose-driven supplement company. It's
So you were on a SWAT team.
Yeah. Yeah.
That I bet you we could have stories on stories of just that.
Oh man, there's just there's so many. But the beauty of running that team was really what allowed me to make the transition and run my team now. Many of the principles I learned early on as a soldier, I brought into the police department. Then as I matured in that career and into the team leader role in SWAT, I really had developed these leadership principles. And as I retired out and started my business, many of the things that I needed to do in order to grow a team and grow a business are really lessons that I learned, in those two professions.
What was one of the biggest, leadership, I guess, characteristics that you took away from some of your military experience and some of your police training experience?
It really amounted to having the strength of character to do what's ethical and what's right. There is a lot of opportunity in certain spaces, in the health space, or supplement space, to a lot of shortcuts there. As I started to learn about these businesses, some people just aren't in it for the right reasons. And so we, as I mentioned earlier, we're a purpose-driven company, and we built our products the same way I treated a hostage rescue mission, which is to plan in reverse. So successful outcome being our clients achieving the thing that they came to us to achieve, so that they'd be our number one raving fan. And then we just built it out with people's experience. So when we had a test supplement, I would simply ask them, does it do what it says it's going to do? And then I would put it out to another person. did you achieve those things? And as you know, it doesn't work for everybody in every instance, but by and large, we would see results with the formulations that we were creating. So the lesson really is to focus on adding value to those people's lives, build from their experience in terms of building your brand and your community, and then roll back to all the business practices from there.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a couple interesting points you made within that idea of leading with this idea of ethics and character. And I remember in the military we always had a saying, take the easy or the harder right versus the easier wrong, because it's that same kind of thing. A lot of times there's so many shortcuts, or there's so many things you can do to
Yeah.
cut off a significant amount of work, or it might seem easier to do it wrong first. It's just like you can totally understand where you're coming from when people
Yeah.
do that, and then as you progress in your career or responsibility, when you start to take shortcuts like that, they almost compound in a lot of
Oh yeah.
ways, to the point where then you're just you keep pushing the line further and further back of what your standard is, if you
It
have
gets
no.
to a point where you can't unpack it any longer, and so
Yes.
you might as well just shut down. So yeah, there's no value add in taking that short road. You know, when you can show up every day and be proud of what you're building and proud of your interactions with your customer, and fulfilling that brand promise, um, there's nothing better. Otherwise I would have stayed in the public sector and retired with a pension, and instead of walking away from it.
Yeah, and that's kind of the other thing that you brought up was something that I took it kind of intuitively, especially in the military, right? This idea that you called it reverse planning. We always called it, starting with the end in mind. What is
Yeah.
that desired end state that you're
Yeah.
interested in, and then how can you backwards plan from there? And it's something that carried into, when I was in the military, that was very common, and then there was very common in project management.
Yeah.
I mean, even in the military, when we wrote our 5 paragraph op orders, one of the things you'd always skim through for was commander's intent and end state.
Yeah.
You look at end state. Well, okay, if all this doesn't work, what do you want done? And then you can kind of get creative and clever with how that happens. And it sounds like you've pulled that into your business operation, and that's a large
Oh
part of why it's
yeah.
become successful.
So I don't know if you guys have it down there, but our orders are built around an acronym SMEAC, which is Situation, Mission, Execution, Administration, and Communications. And you just build out every sequence under one of those headings, and that's exactly the way we could, not that we do it. It's the same thing by different names now in the private sector, but we just built those plans based on those initiatives and the end state, with the end state in mind, and it just seemed to flow very simply, very easily.
How did that? What was that like? That transition, out of the public sector into or inspiration. Walk me through your like how that all evolved.
Sorry, I just caught a piece of that. You broke up at transition.
Yeah, I was just kind of curious how, when you were transitioning out from the public sector into this entrepreneurship role, what inspired that move, and just walk me through how that all evolved.
Well, I mean, it's funny. Like, I'd always had an entrepreneurial drive even when I was in as a kid, but I was a dad at a very young age. Incidentally, you're having a baby soon, aren't you? Sometime in May or something coming up.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah.
Um,
Right around the
so I was a
corner.
father at a young age, and I went into the public sector, but I always had an entrepreneurial drive. I could feel it. I could feel this need to create and to build something that could make a stamp in the world. And so I just kind of developed these one-off, gadgets here and there, and then with the um, development of the internet, and the accessibility to the internet, and the way I saw some people making money online. I really got interested in around 2005, 2006. And so that's when we first started to develop some of our fitness programs, particularly in the niche where guys wanted ultimately the bodies that looked like MMA fighters. So I was working with PhDs in that space to develop these products, which were delivered on no more than a PDF back then. But I'd always had that drive. And as I progressed through my career and I was at the top of my game in SWAT and really enjoying the work, the drive just continued and I couldn't ignore it. And so as we developed the business, it suddenly, and as you know, in military policing, any outside employment, you have to have permission to do. And so I had my letter, I was good to go. But then it really started to take off. And in 2015, it was growing so big, so fast that the police department told me I had to stop it. And I said, but when I was making no money, you didn't care. you know. But they're like, well, now you are, and that wasn't what we agreed to. And I said, well, that's not what the letter is at all. But I just felt so compelled at that stage to make that choice and choose myself, believe in myself, follow that that dream to contribute to the world in a much larger way. Not that there's anything wrong with public service. I love it and I have the utmost respect for it. But you're only reaching a handful of people. And I felt like we could reach the world, transform, hundreds of thousands of lives. And so I told my wife, I said, it's time for me to retire. And I chose to believe in myself and what I was capable of, drawing all my body of work in my past. And I pushed out. So the transition was weird. I called my business partner. I'm like, what do you guys do when you wake up, other than some type of morning rituals? Like I was working from home. It was so surreal for about the first 6 months. But fortunately, when you're self motivated, you're always looking for work. And so, and there's always something to do. And I found, solace in the fact that I could stay busy and feel like I was contributing to something that I was building. And as we continued to grow, we continued to have success. There's plenty of bumps along the way, and this has not been a rosy ride the whole way along. But you know, for the most part, the transition was odd, but at the heart of it was this deep sense that a deep feeling and intuition, a calling that I was meant to do more, and so I made that leap.
Yeah. You know what? Something just kind of listening to your story and also like framing a lot of different military background entrepreneurs that I was trying to kind of figure out for the longest time. What is that characteristic that makes, the military background really significant for entrepreneurs or makes successful entrepreneurs? And people would always say things like, well, it's that they're disciplined. They'd
Yeah,
say, well, that they can take risks and they're not afraid. I'm like, I don't know if it's really all that. I think one of the things I see the most is there's certain personalities in the military that become extremely self-reliant to where
yeah,
they're so confident with themselves. They're so
yeah,
confident in, they know that if I train, I can do this. Like there's like this thing about it. And
yeah.
that's, I think, the people that go on to be very successful entrepreneurs. It's almost like a trait of self-reliance. And that's
I
kind of what I
agree.
see in you. And that's what I see in a lot of my friends that were, maybe Navy SEALs, or they were, in the Green Beret, or,
Yeah,
special forces of all kinds. That seems to be, once they're just like, listen, I got through this before because of the
yeah.
way I prepared and trained and understood something and took time to learn it, and I can get through this. And it's that kind of thinking, I think, that really makes successful entrepreneurs.
I agree with you. Just because you have a military background, you're soldier, there was some of the laziest dudes I ever met in the service. I'm just like, how is it that you're even here? But it's a body of work that you build along the way, and to your point, you become self-reliant as and you this the successful individual is always seeking to become a master.
Mm.
I want to know every aspect of business. I don't, I'm not a numbers guy, but I force myself to learn it because I need to understand that. And if I want to train somebody, bring them up to lead in my company, I need to be able to teach them and teach them within the framework of our values. And so, that I can't agree with you more on the fact that it's just not a military. It's those within that always sought mastery of their craft.
Yep. And I think that there's also some aspect to where you're not afraid to learn something, to be okay learning something. And let me clarify what I mean by that. I had a client, for example, and she had to get into like some weediness with accounting, with math, and some things. And she's like, I just don't do that. Like, I just don't do that. And I'm just like, what do you mean you don't do that? She's like, well, I just don't do that. I'm like, well, no, you have to. If you're going to run a business, you got to know the numbers. You got to learn the numbers. You
Oh,
got to be able to do math. Like, that's why in elementary school, it's like writing and math. That's what they teach people to do. Because those are things that you got to know how to do. And I understand whatever, but there's a certain amount of just knowing how to do it that is sometimes a lot easier to do, to just kind of take control and understand this and be okay saying, I'm not a numbers person, but I'll figure it out. I'll learn it.
yeah, that just happened to us. I mean, we our business model was such, we run a lot of traffic, we run a lot of Facebook ads, native traffic, Google, all that kind of stuff for our customer acquisition model, and we were relying on third parties, and this business moves so quickly, and suddenly things that were working last year weren't working, and this group that we had curated to always be driving our traffic just went away. And so I finally told my business partner, I need 6 months, I'm going to learn this. And I dug in and learned it, and what that did for our ability to project revenue in a much more meaningful way. I can't even believe the difference it is when you're not, constantly contracting a third party for real important core competencies in your business.
Hmm. Absolutely. And in a lot of ways, like I'm not one of those guys that thinks everybody should go to college or thinks like everybody should drop out of college. Like it's just kind of, it's always different. But there is one benefit I think to that, it's okay to like how to dig into a textbook. I mean, everybody listening to this can go on Amazon and buy a textbook in a course that's going to lay it out exactly how a professor is going to lay it out in college. And they're going to show you how to do any skill in the entire world is on Amazon right now. You go buy a textbook. You can Google YouTube videos if you're a visual guy or girl. You know what I mean? There's just in a million ways you can learn this stuff, and you can do it right now. And it's for me, I think that's what my, but it gave me that confidence to learn something, to be okay saying, I don't know how to do this, but I can figure this out. I can buy a textbook, I can buy a book, I can read. And if you can read, you can cook, and you can do anything. And that's kind of this idea that I think a lot of military people have, especially a lot of the more, some of the people that have kind of progressed as either senior NCOs
Yeah.
or had become, senior officers, is they have to kind of learn. There's not a problem when you're in that leadership position. You get a problem in the military, like you have to figure it out. It gets to a certain level, and that problem has to be solved, and there's nothing you have to do about it. So you learn how to figure stuff out.
Yeah, all of the ways to innovate, all of the ways to communicate and motivate people, all of these critical things that allow you to be nimble, that allow you to succeed. They're um, incredibly important in developing a business. Whether it's 6, 7, or 8 figures, it never goes away.
Yeah, the other thing that you mentioned about your transition, into entrepreneurship, was this idea of, I wanted to get your idea on this, was when there's so much to do and sometimes you're like always looking for something to do, bringing this to like maybe a step somebody could take. One thing I find is, am I wasting time on something that I'm just trying to find busy work, to like be busy because that's how I
Oh
think. I know
yeah.
like I should be doing something, or should I be like reserving it for a bigger bang for my buck? What's your process for trying to not get caught into the weeds weeds, just wasting time with busy work, but also finding significant things to contribute your time to.
Yeah, I mean, the real important thing you need to do early is to understand what your 5% is. The things that you do 5% of the time that contribute to 95% of the success in your business. And so for me, it really is around the creative piece and building the strategy.
Hmm.
If I have to get sucked down into the minutia, which sometimes I still do, even though we've got a 20-person team, I still sometimes have to show somebody how to plug in a camera or edit a video properly. And it's like,
Right.
are you kidding me? But it happens. And so what I need to do, or what I think is important to do, is understand if there's any potential bottlenecks in your company, and then plug people in. And the way I've done that is by building a process map, or so I understand everything that needs to be done, and who do I have in those places. And we have a lot of people sitting in two chairs running, multi um, different parts of the business on a day to day. But as long as I understand that it's not something that's going to detract from my 5%, then I'm fine. I have to be able to bring people in and plug them into those roles that aren't going to detract from, me just sitting here, reading emails needlessly. Like, that's just stuff I need people to filter that out, so that I'm, instead of getting 100 emails a day, I'm getting four, and the four are the ones that need decisions made, and they're strategic in nature. So my process really was defining the way that I contribute to the organization most effectively, and not letting anybody into that space when I have that time allocated to do those functions.
Yeah, that seems, I mean, how did you figure out that that's where you kind of were in the sweet spot, right? This 5% of your time was spent with strategic decision making, process mapping, et cetera. Was there a long journey to figure out that you were really good at this, or did you kind of have this natural intuition of how to be good at it?
No, like, if anybody out there, or if you even ever read Rocket Fuel and Traction, we kind of built our business on the EOS model, the entrepreneurial operating system, where you have an integrator and a visionary. And obviously, you can fall in between on that spectrum. And I'm one of those people, but my business partner is way skewed over into the visionary. And so he's uber creative. He can't um, think about ways to articulate the needs to get things done, the systems and processes. So me having had experience in understanding, what it takes to run an operation, that there needs to be pieces. I, in some way, a little bit um, uh, begrudgingly kind of pushed myself a little bit more, but that way, now that I have, I'm just all in on it, because it really gives me the opportunity to develop leaders, to talk to people about values, because I'm so passionate about the end state of what we're trying to do. So it was kind of doing an assessment of where we are at in terms of personnel and what we have in the business, and then, really pushing myself down one road versus another, because I was so in the middle. It would have taken me a lot more time to get and to become effective in that creative side versus, the operational side. So it just was really getting a bird's eye view and assessing the gaps, and then seeing if I could fill those gaps, or if we needed to bring somebody in to execute.
Sure. I worked with a partner a while ago on a project where he had read Traction and used this EOS model.
Yeah.
I never ended up reading it, but I we started to use, like, there was like this one sheet, right? If I
Yep.
remember
Your
correctly, and there,
VTO.
your VTO, that's what it was.
Yeah.
And there's like these different columns you figure out, and it's like this one glance at your strategy and breaking it into an operations plan.
Yeah.
Can you just provide maybe a little summary for people on what that looks like? Because I remember it vaguely, but you seem like you use it in your business. So this is the first time
Yeah.
I've seen this kind of in operations.
Yeah, and so we've modified it slightly, but it's this one sheet that really allows you to give you your 10-year picture, 5, 3, and 1, we have established in there our BHAG, which is your big, hairy, audacious goal, what you really want to achieve, and then you break it out by what does that actually mean in terms of cold hard numbers. So it's one thing to say, hey, I want to earn 50 million. How are you actually going to do that? And so then the other components of the VTO, they have what is called rocks, and you set your rocks for each quarter. These are must haves. And then within those rocks, you set out what's it going to take to achieve those rocks each time. And if somebody isn't doing it, they have to answer, have the accountability piece around it. It allows you to see your values, the way we've got it structured, and then things that are maybe a little longer haul project that we've kind of got coming Q2, Q3, Q4.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like a great tool to take those abstract, ambitious goals and ground them into a plan, right?
Yeah, it was weird. The first year, I remember we had set out a goal, and when I first came out of the police department, I'd never really understood any of this. But we had this goal with no real way, no tangible way to get there that we had articulated on any document or anything like that. But every meeting, we were looking at this goal. And year one, it didn't look great. Year two, it didn't look great. And then year three, we absolutely exploded and crushed every one of those goals. And to this day, I still don't know really what was responsible for it. I mean, I do, but it was odd to that, it ended up happening that way, even though despite the fact that it really wasn't crystal clear, but we looked at it every day. We believed that we would get there. And I'm all in on visualization and that kind of stuff. And man, it happened. And so, now we're way more formalized, and we actually see a path to achieving that goal, and it all makes sense. And we can project based on hard, fast numbers, but we didn't back then.
You mentioned you're in on visualization. Tell me some of these other strategies that you might use, like whether it's visualization or if there's any habits or routines or things that you swear by.
Yeah, so my morning routine is absolutely critical. I'm a massive proponent of a guy called Dr. Joe Dispenza, who
Yep.
really gets into the quantum realm of energy impacting matter. And if you're um, focusing on your future, what it looks like, what you're doing it in the present, when you're in that present moment, you're focusing on the emotion. You've got some music that is emotional, that you actually, in that moment, in that present moment, you are there. It really is just a matter of time until your body catches up. And I cannot tell you how many times that's happened since I've been the age of 17. When I put my first Harley underneath my light switch, and I touch that picture every day. 6 months later, I own that motorcycle. And at 17, you shouldn't be owning Harley Davidsons. I still don't even know how I put it together. But, that's the kind of thing that I always did. I believed that I owned that motorcycle. And sure enough, it came in. All through my life, I've been using that process. And so as I started to understand it more and learn more about it and learn what was going on, I could actually develop a practice. And I'm not a meditation guy, but I do like to focus on outcomes. And I focus on the outcome, 4 or 5 minutes each morning. I create a movie in my mind. I attach emotion to what that conversation feels like with the person that I'm congratulating, or I'm having the conversation with my wife that we hit our goals, or what I'm wearing. And I really believe that it's already happened. And so many times, in fact, I'll give you a good example. I was speaking at an event that I had attended the year before. The year before, the guy hosting the event said, I want you guys to write a letter to yourself that we will mail to you in a year. And I want it to contain everything that you want to happen in your life and in your business between now and then. Every single thing in that letter came true except one. And the one was really something I was like, okay, I might as well just throw this down too. I didn't have, real hard and fast focus on it happening, but everything else I was hell bent on happening. And so little reminders of goals I want to achieve and things like that laying around, and I focus on it. That's it.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in focusing as much as you can because I mean, even when I was a little kid, I would do stuff like I was holding like a hot cup of hot chocolate or something, and I'd be like, "Don't spill it, don't spill it, don't spill it." And I'd be doing something really important, then I'd spill it, and I'm like, "Why do I?" It's because I just kept thinking over and over not to spill it, and then I like subconsciously, "Oh, whoops," and
Totally.
and it's like and then I saw that and as I started to study these different successful entrepreneurs or success figures all in the world, there's always this aspect of focus because when you're starting to consistently place your mind on something that
Oh,
no matter what you're going to start naturally making it try to happen, whatever
it's
you're doing.
man, the way you said that it resonates with me on such a deep level. You place your thoughts, you place your mind, and you hold it in there, and then you attach the emotion to it. It really is inevitable if you continue to keep it and hold it there. I have yet to really, things happen slower sometimes than I would like, uh, but by and large, they still happen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I think that that's a great tool for anybody. I think Tony Robbins always talks about where focus goes, energy flows. And it's
Yeah.
just because when you're really focusing in on certain things, you're just so much more efficient and effective at it. And, we've had different people on this show that actually talked about strategies for focusing in particular, things like exercise drills, like a
Yeah.
sport, doing these different like focus drills where, even if it's something maybe not on the level of maybe manifesting, but on the level of just like not being distracted, for example,
Yeah.
or concentrating, how to do that. And it takes practicing under pressure, just like a sport or anything else. And
Yeah.
that's something that I'm a big believer in all levels.
Dude, the importance of being present can never be understated, because it's in the present that you put your energy
Mm.
into shifting matter, right? Changing outcomes, and it's that energy, that focus that absolutely has that impact. When we start to look too far into the future, that's where anxiety comes, that's where fear begins. I don't control that. You control it in the present, and the closer, the deeper rooted you get to the present in that moment, the faster you are at creating that energy to move to that desired outcome.
Yeah, and it makes sense because all you can control is right now, right here, my fingertips,
Right.
my legs, my feet. I had an old coach always
I
said, just be
know.
where your feet are. And
Yeah.
it's so true, right? Because when you're thinking about things that you can't control, I absolutely can't do anything about the future. I definitely can't do anything about the past. Like
Yeah.
they don't exist.
Yeah.
It's like this is what exists. So
Yeah.
I get it. I think that's a great way of thinking about things, and it is great from a mental health standpoint as well. Because when
Totally.
these people that just get fixated, I mean, I know people that have accomplished cool things in their past, but they've done nothing for 15, 20 years. A lot of my
Yeah.
friends that are athletes, that was the case. The all star, the jock in high school that never like grew up. That peaked in high school kind of thing. Like everybody's got those stories where they look at the past and they have nothing, and then everybody knows pretty much everybody nowadays, because of social media, starts getting anxiety because they're fixated on the future and they're addicted to their phones. So it's
Yeah.
just this idea of being present has just so many benefits, whether it's to you know be present, be focused on certain things for some kind of material gain, some kind of like accomplishment, or whether it's for like mental health. There's endless great things about that idea of being present.
Yeah, just communicating, even being present in your communication and being authentic with people as you have a discussion with them. There's a lot of that that's lost now. I agree with you 100%.
I agree with that one too. Just like the idea of having a conversation, listening to someone instead of waiting to talk. You know what I mean? Like just how do you have the, especially in sales too. I know so many sales guys just go at the other person. It's like all you got to do is listen to what they want,
Yeah.
and figure out if you have the solution in your inventory of solutions or what product offerings you have. It's not that complicated, but they listen to these fast talking guys on YouTube and this is how you sell and you just get in their face. It's like, no, just listen and respond.
Yeah, there's three types of communicators I've come across. There are those who um, immediately want to tell you everything about themselves and don't care what you have to say. There are those who will wait till you're done and then they'll tell you everything about themselves. And then there's the third who's authentic and listens.
Yeah, it's about right.
Right? You just
Carnegie talks about that all the time
yeah, yeah. To be interesting, to be
in his book.
interesting.
Yep, instead of being interested or interesting, try to be interested, and it's
Yeah,
just so simple when you think of it that way. And then you run into people that really introverted, shy people that you try to be really interested in them and they just don't want to talk about themselves, and it's okay to fill the space with other stuff, but
sure.
it's this idea of playing your environment and being emotionally aware. And that's what another guest I just had on, a friend of mine, Noble Gibbons. He has a podcast all on emotional intelligence,
Yeah,
and a lot of it comes to understanding your exact environment, like even in your studio, what's going on.
yeah.
Are you like waiting? Is there a meeting after this? Just like, how do I understand where you're going right now or what you're experiencing so I can, best satisfy this conversation.
Yeah, you want to be of service, right? Like that's you want to be engaged and present with people so that people who are going to listen to this actually get some value out of it. We're not rushing through. It's just a conversation that could be transformational in somebody's life. There might be just one little nugget. So it's for guys like you and I who really enjoy this kind of stuff and trying to build people up and allow them to achieve some of the stuff that we've been fortunate enough to achieve. It's a responsibility, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, and there's not enough of that, especially with men like you who are very accomplished, have demonstrated expertise in very masculine roles, and have done this. There's not a lot of encouragement from people like that. It's more of a competition a lot of times. So when
Sure.
you finally find that community of men that can uplift each other as well, it's really really refreshing, should say, to see that ability, say like, look, we got each other, like we got to stick together. It's just like brotherhood almost.
Man, that was one of the things, and it was kind of sad when I left policing. I lost a lot of friends because they don't want you to succeed. They want you to
Hmm.
be anchored in misery, and kind of latch to the golden handcuffs. And one of the first things I did in my transition was I cut all negative. If I came away from a conversation with you and I doubted myself, or you made me feel like I was less than who I was or what I wanted to become, I didn't talk to you again. I didn't. That my wife says that's my gift, is that I can cut a cord in a heartbeat. Doesn't matter. If you're not contributing in a way that is positive in our lives, I can't wait. There's too much to do. You know, I want to impact this world in my lifetime, and I can't be trying to navigate negativity.
Yeah, I agree. I have plenty of friends like that, and um, I get it. I see, especially when your friends are very competitive as well, and when you start to become successful, and they
Yeah.
start to say, "Well, that's not good because now he's beating me," and they just don't want you. And it's like, who thinks like that? Well, people think like
It,
that.
people that I found, they want you to do okay. They don't want you to do better.
Yeah, that's a
And
great point.
I had to eliminate those people from my life. Like they were just toxic.
Yeah, and some of my best friends to this day are the ones who just don't care. Like they don't care how much money I make or how much I lose. It's just like, let's just have a good time. It's just so
Totally.
it's almost.
Yeah, I've got 3 buddies that I go fishing with. We don't it doesn't matter what's happening, from a success. We really want everybody, each of us, to see. us achieve everything that we set out to do. And there's genuine care and love amongst each other for, um, you know, without the presence of competition, any of that. Guys are just helping out, and I'm very grateful for that.
Well, give me a few, just like what is Pure Life? Tell me a little bit more about it and our listeners. And then I'm just kind of curious a little bit more about the company in general, because you kind of talked about your journey up to it. But
Yeah.
what is like the operations like and stuff?
So there's kind of two operations. We have a media company, and then we have our health company. And Pure Life Organics is our health company that produces organic, holistic supplements, full of different types of spices and adaptogens, and all of these kinds of things that can actually have an impact on your body and do some transformational things. We have tea blends that are focused on anti-inflammation. We have tea blends that are focused on improving sleep, one of the most critical things going on in the world right now. We have tea blends and juice blends that are focused on, and these are all powders, and they're focused on gut health and immune health. And then we have a range of products that are aimed at helping people's bodies. So we have a program coming up very soon called Back on Track, for example, which is all about back health, because God knows I've suffered a lifetime of breaking back pain from the job. And then we have products around yoga, and if people come and visit our Instagram page, those two subject matter experts, Kyle and Danny, are the ones there that are just delivering ungodly amounts of content all the time, just to help people. Like, that is our mission, is kind of twofold. We call it healthy people, healthy planet. And on our way to creating healthy people, we also want to plant millions of trees through our drone reforestation program. And the company is deeply, deeply committed to transforming millions of lives along the way. And with what's happening in the world right now, we feel like we can contribute in a positive way.
Yeah, I love the mission. I love the idea too of, I love how in the last decade, people started waking up to what they consume and what they eat, and that it actually does have control over
Yeah.
their lives and their livelihood. There was, my grandparents were like really early on this, like, kind of raw vegan thing,
Mm.
like in the late 90s. And there was like, it was almost like a cult back then because it was so uncommon to be that into it. And they got a lot of things right, but they also got a lot of things wrong. And unfortunately, it led to some health issues. And so my family grew up just like ripping on this health idea of like
Yeah.
worshiping health to a level. And then now, in since like 2010 or so, it's become a lot more mainstream, and a lot of that has been fleshed out. And there's been this idea that, like, wow, what we eat doesn't need to be like over processed chemicals. It can actually be things found in the earth. It can be things found naturally. For me, I enjoy meat, but I always call it, I'm a conscious carnivore. Like, I want to know where that meat
Yep.
came from most of the time, unless I'm inconvenienced or something like that. But it's just this idea of like, people are now very aware of what they're putting in their bodies, and I love that you're part of this movement of getting people to understand the consequences and benefits of what they consume.
Yeah, man, it was almost by accident. My wife, who's a police officer just about to retire, was in a car accident, and um, during a high speed pursuit, and it wrecked her back. And as she transitioned into her 40s, she gained this weight. Didn't matter how much she dieted. And what we found was, it was just through all the pain and stress, that the inflammation didn't matter. If she cut her calories to 600, she just couldn't lose
Mm.
weight. She was in a negative hormone loop. Her cortisol was completely out of whack. And so I really went to work and researched, these things. And really, it was our turmeric tea that I started making in our kitchen that launched this entire Pure Life Organics business, because if it had
Wow.
dramatic effects on her health. And then we like I said, we build in reverse. We tried it with four other people, same thing. And so now it's been absolutely almost maniacal, the growth spurt as a result of it. But that's how it kind of the impetus for it all, really.
Yeah. Well, this has been, an absolute pleasure having you on the show today. This has been a great conversation.
Yeah.
Where can people learn more about, you, follow along with you on your journey, or learn more about Pure Life Organics?
Yeah, they can come by the site at purelifeorganics.com, or come see us for a lot of good content at purelife.organics on Instagram. And if you've got any pain or any you want to stretch or anything, our team's there delivering incredible amounts of value.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Todd, for jumping on the show today. You guys are listening to Winners, Wallets, and Worldviews podcast. Guys, check this out anywhere you listen to podcasts: iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, YouTube. We are everywhere. If you're listening to this, you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend that needs to hear something like this. Leave 5 stars and an awesome review. We would sincerely appreciate this to get trending and other places in the world, so we can continue to increase our reach and our message on this show. So thank you so much, everybody. Be somebody.